Cool. Okay, so this is our package group weekly internal customer meeting. My boss, Jason Lenny, asked me to start hosting these to have a chance for the product team to meet with our internal customers to hear about how you're solving problems with the product or outside of the product, and as well as to give you a chance to hear what we're working on and what our priorities are, and a chance for your teams to offer feedback and say, well, what we really want is this. Separately, actually, Alex and I just recently met. We're doing some user research on the container registry, and we've been meeting with folks from the infrastructure and distribution team as well to help drive what our needs are there as well. So thank you, Alex, for your help two times in 1 week. I really appreciate it. Okay, so to quick highlights. So first item on the agenda is reviewing features from the past release. This is pretty small for us, actually. You know, we're just building up the package team now. The changes we made, actually, let me pull up the kickoff doc, sorry. I'm like 5 minutes late to every meeting today. So in 12.0, what we've released was, just scrolling down. A couple of small things. So we have a Maven repository that allows users to build and publish their Maven dependencies. We set up a GitLab CI YAML template. We updated it, I should say, that allows them to take advantage of the Maven repository. Dimitri did some work on the dependency proxy to enable it by default per group. And we updated some container registry API permissions. But this past release was really our last release without having a fully dedicated team. So now we're starting to pick up momentum. In the upcoming release in 12.1, we are working on a bunch of different features here. So we're working on a new package manager for C and C++ called Conan. We are enabling NPM packages to be at the subgroup and group level. It's currently blocking JavaScript developers. And we're adding in some fixes for, maybe y'all have encountered this problem with the container registry. If you have any special characters in your project or branch name, it actually breaks the connection to Docker. So we don't have a solution for it, but we're documenting how you do solve this problem on the platform. So that's something that we're working on this release. Any questions about that?
Not for me.
Okay. The big thing that we're trying to work towards now, and I mentioned the user research that we're conducting, is trying to figure out a path towards lovable or complete for the container registry. We're currently not storing any of the data. We have storage problems. So we're figuring out what's the best architecture for that moving forward, and how does that impact our development timelines and the future features. So let me I should have linked that issue here. Okay, so yeah, that's one big thing. And then any questions about the user research piece?
Also, no.
Yeah, I'm still getting acclimated on this part of how things work, and so really just kind of sponging it all in at the moment.
Cool. I just linked to the user research issue in the chat that we're working through, and what we're trying to uncover, and what some of the questions we're asking are. And it links to the YouTube video, private YouTube videos as well, of actually conducting the interviews. So the goal was to talk to 3 to 5 internal users and 7 to 10 external users, and build on a hypothesis about how users are using the container registry and where we need to be in the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months. Okay.
Gotcha. So if there's folks like on my team that I want to be involved with this, I can just tag them in is that how you've been going about it? Or?
Yeah, exactly. Or you could Slack me, or whatever's easiest for you. I'm happy to coordinate everything if you just let me know who I should talk to. So far, I've spoken to John, Jarvis, Alex, and DJ.
A good person to talk to you about container registry.
Okay, cool. Yeah, tag them in the issue and I'll follow up with them.
Sounds good.
Okay. So I just had, actually, Alex, maybe you could ask this question or answer this question. We're thinking a lot about keeping the image around, like storing these approved images that we're working on. What happens if an image is deleted? Like the blessed image for a given milestone has been deleted. What's the downside of that?
Because there's no garbage collection, there's no, like, the data itself is still there. You would just have to re-tag it for the container registry. So it, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's really all there is.
So even if it was deleted, you still have the Docker file that it was created from, right? So are there any concerns about rebuilding if an image was deleted?
I would say no. If as long as you have the Docker file, if it's stored in Git, you can obviously go back to whenever and rebuild it and just tag it with the same name as it had. The same tag and all that.
Okay. I'm just trying to, as we're thinking through how we do sort of retention and storage policies, I'm seeing our competition all does in the way that's expected. Like Go Harbor, you select the images that you want to keep and they get stored and everything else will get dropped. But I'm wondering for us, what is the artifact that's important? Is it the Docker file or is it the image? And if it's the image or tagged image, why is that more? Yeah, what's the risk of losing it?
Well, I mean, so as things are today, if we decided to clean up things today and start expiring images, we would only really be able to delete the tag itself because there's no garbage collection on the registry.
Right.
So it wouldn't really make sense for us to do anything like that until we had a garbage collection mechanism, because otherwise we would just be irritating our customers for no reason. In my opinion.
Let's say that we had garbage collection.
Then the data itself would be deleted, but it would be most likely easy to rebuild if you had the Docker file.
Do you ever lose that Docker file? Thinking about your previous work?
It's possible, but no. I mean, because we store everything in Git, so unless like GitLab itself had a data loss issue, we would most likely never lose it. And if we were building it with CI, then it would even be just as easy as to rerun the CI pipeline.
Would it be hard at all to go back and say version 9.5 of GitLab, if you had to go back and find that image, but the image didn't exist, but the Docker file or the CI pipeline, would that be challenging?
Yeah, it would.
The layers would change over time, right? And so when you went to reconstruct it, you probably wouldn't end up with the same exact image that you did from like a year ago.
Because we don't like pin versions. So, if you had, say, 9.5, while it would run all of the same commands to build it, you would perhaps end up with a different base image from Docker Hub or whatever upstream image you use. And sometimes, sometimes things just don't work quite as you might expect, right? So rebuilding an image from so long ago, various dependencies might have changed or become more difficult. I mean, we could probably go back. We could definitely go back and rebuild packages for back any version because we have the stable branches. But for the Docker images themselves, I wouldn't trust it myself.
Because things have changed, because the base image could have changed over time, or because there's some other unknown piece with the layers and how they get built that may have changed over time.
Right, exactly.
I guess
There's a lot of unknown things happening when you go back too far.
I see. I always thought of the Docker file as like an immutable recipe. Like it wouldn't change, but maybe.
So the Docker file itself, like the steps that it would run wouldn't necessarily change. But if you're pulling in like, a Linux image from upstream, then it might. Now, you can tag those things too. So in theory, if everything was tagged the way it should be, then it would be the same, right? If you go and you pull in the, Ubuntu image for 1404, that's probably not changed. But, you can't be certain.
Right.
We're not in control of that.
Okay, that clears up some questions that Daniel and I were asking, which is, what is the key artifact for the container registry? Is it the Docker file, or is it do we need to store images? Thinking about a future state, a year from now, what is the important artifact? Is it the image, or is it the Docker file? And it sounds like it's both.
I mean, it's both, yeah. The thing is like with deleting images ever, you can never be certain that the customer can go back. We might be able to be certain for our own stuff. That would require, investigation and testing for sure. But like for a customer, like you can never be certain that they would be able to go back.
Okay, that's really helpful. Okay, so yeah, you could see Dan had these same questions in mind. So I think we covered his questions. And then, Alex, can you talk through this issue 7055 for how we are changing the way we build store images?
I'm not 100% sure. This was closed today, and so I read up on it. But pretty much we've decided to use one repo for all of our images, and then tag them appropriately with, like what the image is. So right now we have an image of the chef repo. And my understanding is that we will be doing that for any future images we need to make for any other things. The example we have here that kind of spawned this image and discussion was that when we run a test on the chef repo, for example, every time we pull in the like upstream image, and then it installs a bunch of stuff and then does its tests. So our goal was to speed up those things by making an image that had already installed all those things so that it can just begin. And we decided it didn't make as much sense to try to make an image for every single repository. We decided to store all of the Docker files and images in one mono repo. So that's where we're at now. If that makes sense.
It does. I've read through the couple of proposals quick. It's choosing between how you if you tag something with project latest or with the commit SHA. Do you have a preference in how that works?
I mean, I think the commit SHA is more precise, right? Because I know exactly what that came from. It looks like what we've decided here is to do a bit of both, right? Update the latest image, but also create an image for the tag with the tag of the SHA. I imagine you can see this because we put everything publicly. Yeah, it's public. So right now we have the chef repo. So we have an image for the chef repo, and underneath that we have tags for the commit SHAs and then one latest. And you can see in here that the latest has the same tag as one of the commit SHAs, or one of the commit SHA tagged images. So we're doing both pretty much.
Interesting. This is something that I am trying to figure out how we, talking to other users, they are using the commit SHA as their primary method for for tagging images.
Yeah.
So I really want to support that, but it sounds like we still may have a need to tag something as latest or master or
yeah. I mean, it latest is like the standard, really, in the Docker world. You can pretty much assume that any image you use that's publicly available will have a latest tag that is indeed the latest version. And then usually they'll also have other version tags. Since we, as infrastructure, don't do versioning of these kinds of things, the SHA makes more sense. But if you were to go look at like the Debian images, for example, you'll see that they have like a Debian 7 latest, and then like a Debian 7.1, 7.2, or whatever. I'm not sure if those are the exact ones, but you'll see that they have both a latest tag for each version as well as a specific version. So yeah.
Okay. One thing I was thinking about is the idea of, for tags, using the commit SHA, and then having again, future concepts, but the idea of a label where you could label something as latest, but the image is actually tagged always, because most of the builds are happening from CI. It's easier to tag it with the commit SHA, and then have the idea of like, now from the UI you could add a label, and then the label will be latest.
Yeah, so because of the way Docker works, that wouldn't really, you're just going to have more than one tag, and the latest tag will also be the same as one of the other ones.
Okay. So
yeah, it wouldn't make much sense to do anything any other way, simply based on the architecture of Docker. Like that's a upstream thing, not anything we've done.
Okay. So where do you tag it as latest? Because you're building it from CI, right? So you tag it with...
I think we are building it from CI. Actually, I don't think we're building it from CI yet. We are testing it via CI, but I believe that we we actually build it manually right now. Obviously, this just started like today, so that'll be changing, I'm sure. Right now, we just test to make sure the Docker build works correctly, but we will definitely be moving on to a situation where it's all done. What I would imagine would happen is if we're building it off of master, then it would tag it as latest because we're building it off of the master branch, or whatever we choose. It doesn't have to be the master branch, but one branch specifically would be the one that would tag a latest image.
And you could just put that into the YAML file to tag it that way. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. You would probably have a separate tag, like two tag commands, one that tags the SHA and one that tags the latest, but it's the same image.
With two different tags.
Right.
Okay.
And the UI will show you that as well.
Right. It'll show with the same tag ID.
Correct.
Or two different tags. Okay. That makes sense to me. Have you talked to DJ a bit on the distribution team about how they're doing it with the CNG projects that they have?
I have not, no.
It could be they're doing everything from CI as well. He might be worth talking to about, because they're building and supporting a ton of images and tagging in a specific way, and so he might be able to talk to you about some of the learnings that he's had along the way.
Definitely. That would be wise. I might bring him in on this issue. We're kind of deciding things on our own here.
Yeah, it would be helpful for me if we could do that, because then if we come up with sort of our approach, and then that's built into the product, and we start to think that way, that this is the way that the industry should be doing tagging and builds and promoting and things like that along with their repos, I think having that combined opinion could be really valuable for us.
Yeah. I think that the way you do your Docker images is going to be a pretty personal decision, regardless of where you work. right? I mean, if I'm doing something for my personal project, I'm going to have very different needs than somebody like the infrastructure team here or the distribution team in general. So I think that would be very similar for the customer. I don't know that there's one true way to do it. I think it's all, what works best for them. And that may or may not be the same thing we're doing.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because like for us, like we don't, like I said, with the Shaws, we're doing that because we don't do versioning. We don't tag our repos. We don't release different versions of our like Chef repo image. But with something like GitLab, where we do release discrete versions, 12.0, 12.01, etc., then it's going to make more sense to use those as tags.
I see. Well, I'm hopeful that we can find something that presents sort of our opinion on how to do it, but is still flexible enough to allow the different types of users and organizations to do it in their own way and show some creativity in how they solve the problem. That was really helpful. I'm going to go back and listen to that conversation a few times. Okay. Steve, you asked about the roadmap for the rest of the year.
Yes.
Just briefly, because I didn't have anything to send, I just linked to my recent group conversation. This doesn't lay things out in timing, but at least you could see by category, what are the big issues that we want to tackle, and it links to all the specific issues as well.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Yeah, I'm in the mode of trying to understand what dependencies folks are going to have on my team, through the rest of the year. And so that understanding what other teams are planning sort of helps us gauge where we need to spend time. So yeah.
Yeah, big thing. I mean, just to walk through that slide quick, the container registry I mentioned, we're really trying to solve this problem about how to do inline garbage collection, which we currently can't support. And we use a lot of storage for the container registry for GitLab.com. I think it's over 1.6 petabytes and growing. So we need to figure out how to solve that. And then once we can do that, then we really want to solve the problem of how do you retain, retention and expiration policies. And then once we are storing the data, we could improve the UI. So I don't know if you've walked through the container registry UI right now, but if you have more than 10 images, it becomes pretty hard to use. And it's hard to discover images. You can't sort or filter. So those sorts of things will be things that we want to add in the future. And then a separate avenue is the package registry, which is basically just we're blocked in a few ways right now for NPM, and we have a lot of negative customer sentiment for that we want to resolve. And then we want to add in net new package managers, which supports our customers. And then finally, I don't know how much we'll get to it in the next 6 months, but improving the dependency proxy, which allows people to cache and proxy their images and blobs. If we are building our own container registry, the way we might do it might be to expand on what we've done already for the dependency proxy. But more to come in the coming month.
Awesome. Thanks for all that great context.
No problem. Anything else to talk about? All right. And in that case, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to doing these again in the future.
For sure.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.